Good afternoon, sports fans, and welcome to another edition of Sports Talk with Rags here in Season 3, Episode 60. And today, here we are honored by Chris, the Bear, Fallica. The Bear, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Just starting to ramp up the prep for college football. I headed to Australia for the Women's World Cup, so it's a fun time of the year, and September is going to be here before we know it. In college football and the NFL will be back.
Right. Yes. And hey, let's start at the beginning. I mean, when you were growing up, did you want to be a broadcaster, or their junior high school, or did you play all sports? What was it like there growing up and you with sports?
Well, I always knew that I wanted to be involved in sports. I was the kid growing up and sitting there on a Monday or a Tuesday night during the summer with my scorecard on the couch, keeping score of a Yankees game. So going to my dad's softball games and keeping the scorecard for all of that. So I knew I always wanted to be involved in sports. Growing up, I played baseball and football were the main sports that I played. Played soccer in junior high as well because my junior high team didn't have a football team. But I basically plotted out my path in my career. My high school was fortunate enough to have a student newspaper, obviously, and we also had a weekly show on cable television, so I was able to get a little bit of experience there. And then I wound up moving on to the University of Miami, where I worked in the sports information office for 4 years, and that allowed me to make a lot of contacts in the industry, and that's ultimately how I wound up at ESPN,
Right.
working one night for Mike Breen for WFAN on a Knicks radio call when they were down in Miami with the Heat. And I asked Mike about a potential internship at WFAN, and he was like, absolutely, call me when you get back from the road trip. And he did. So I got an internship, and then one of my bosses from WFAN wound up going up to ESPN Radio when they first started forming and getting on the air. And the rest is history.
Right. Yes. Yeah. I mean, here I am, third season of doing this podcast, and no matter who I've had on, and whether it's been a broadcaster or whether it's been former athlete, definitely networking has definitely been the topic, and making contacts.
And that's something that I tell a lot of people ask me about. How do you, the same thing you did? How did you get into it? What was your major? What you were? And I always say the major in school. I mean, yeah, if you're a broadcast major in school or a journalism major in school or some type of mass media major, that is always helpful. But
Yes.
the experience and knowing people is something more, I think, powerful and greater with the impact. If you're able to get out there and work in a sports information department, or work with a team, or work at a television station or a sports radio, anything that you can get tangible experience. Like, I mean, how many people nowadays may have done something else in their career or in college, but with the vast broadband of social media nowadays with podcasts and stream and everything, you don't necessarily have to have gone to school to do this, but yeah, who and getting opportunities and to be able to present a tape or a resume or writing samples, that I think is clearly nowadays more important than being able to say, hey, I have a bachelor's degree in journalism.
Yeah. Yes. And, you talk about, going up to ESPN radio there in 95. Well, then I see in 96, you started working for Game Day.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a perfect situation for me. The previous Game Day researcher was moving on, and the head of research at the time heard that there was a college football savant working part time as a production assistant tape op on the weekends at ESPN Radio, and came over and interviewed me, and I wound up getting the job to be the Game Day researcher, and it was great because Kirk Herbstreit and I wound up starting in 96 the same year. And I think that's one of the reasons why we have the relationship that we do, that we're so close, because we always knew that we kind of had each other's back. We were kind of the two new guys there. I mean, not that Chris and Coach were fantastic,
Right.
But there was always a hey, when you're kind of in trouble or you're out there to dry, you're on the road, you want to go grab a bite to eat. We kind of knew we were always there for each other. So it turned out to be great. And who would have thought back in '96 that the show would have grown to what it grew to, and my career would have taken the path that it certainly did.
Yes, and I mean, here you are, starting there on game day in '96, but just year after year, as the show grew, then you got a bigger part, and here what in the
Mm-hmm.
last 5-6 years, definitely there, grew your popularity there with picking the games.
Yeah, and that's one of the thing that I am most proud of in my time at Game Day was, along with Chris Fowler and the producer of the show, Lee Fitting at the time, we were ahead of the curve with sports gambling. And Lee Corso, it was the same way. Kind of people want to know who's going to win and by how many. And Chris and I would figure out ways to get like the veil dimensions in there. The experts in the desert expect this to be the lowest scoring game of the day, and just work in kind of subtle spread related tids. And then finally, when the show expanded and legalization throughout the country came about, we were like, hey, look, we're not going to hide. We know people are betting on games. We have someone here who's familiar with the terminology, familiar with Vegas. He's bet on games himself. And we think this is something that can serve our audience. And we figured out a way to kind of do it in a fun, entertaining, but informative fashion where maybe you weren't necessarily betting on games, but at the same time, if they would throw to me and say, well, what do you think about Michigan State, Ohio State? And I would just say something along the lines of, hey, the spreads 12, 13 points in this game. But remember, the last dozen times that Michigan State's been this big of an underdog under Mark D'Antonio, they've won 8 times outright and covered all but once. So this game might not be the blowout that people expect today. And that's something that even I think the casual fan was able to understand and appreciate that, hey, this maybe I will watch this game because maybe it won't be a blowout and it will be close and we have a chance at an upset. Yeah, I'm not going to bet on it, but that's an interesting note. So I think being able to find those types of historical nuggets and notes and trends to be able to work them into the show created both the following amongst gamblers and just general fans in general.
Yeah, and the thing is college football. I mean, just the growth and the excitement that has come along with the game here, definitely in the last 10 years. It's time. Time for, and I would have to say that College Game Day was the first one that I knew where it was time to come out of the studio and go from week to week, college campus sites, and just the attention that the fans, spending the night, and when you guys went out west and the time change, still the crowd,
Oregon, UCLA,
that's out there,
It's amazing to think back to '96 when I first started. The show was only an hour. The show was up from 10 to 11. We were not on the road every week. And then I think right around 2001 or 2002 or so, that was when the show really started taking off and going on the road every week. And then it grew into the spectacle that it did. And a couple of years ago, Fox decided to get into I maybe saw the success of College Game Day and saw the success and an opportunity in that noon window to get a big time matchup, mainly in the Big Ten or Big 12, and build a show and take it on the road as well. So that's going to be the show I'm going to be involved in moving forward. And I think it's a really exciting time in the sport to be involved in the Fox show, with them getting the brunt of the Big Ten schedule, and we'll see what happens with some other deals as well. But I think the Game Day certainly created the template and the fan following and the cult following. But I think I think this year will be interesting to see if Big Noon, with the changes they made on the set as well, are able to make a little bit of a dent in the following that Game Day had.
Yes, and for the listeners out there, I mean, how did you how did you get the nickname the Bear?
Well, yeah, for the first question I need to ask you, is this a PG rated podcast or is it an R rated podcast?
It's a PG rated.
Okay, there. Okay, that's what I need to know then.
All right.
So back in 2003, I believe it was, Kirk and myself were sitting in a lobby type restaurant, or a restaurant just off of the lobby in a hotel, and we had just woken up and we had basically gym shorts and a t-shirt on, looking kind of ragged, or we wanted to get something to eat late morning, right before lunch, and Coach Corso comes walking in, and he had gone out for his morning walk, and he's got his black leather jacket and his blue jeans on. And Lee certainly is not one to shy away from drawing attention. So
Right.
he's walking through the lobby and he sees Kirk and I. He's like, "Yo, Chris Fallica, Kirk Herbstreit, how you guys doing?" And he comes on over to say hi. And anybody who has seen Kirk and I out know that like any empty space on the table is dead space. So there's food all over the table. So Coach Corso looks at the table, looks at me, looks at Kirk, looks at the table again, looks at me, and then shakes his head and goes, "Look at you, Fallica. You're just like a big bear. All you do is eat, sleep," and I'll finish I'll let the PG version go to your imagination for the third
Right.
word, and then you take another nap again. So that's how the nickname the Bear came about.
Yeah. Well, hey, I mean,
Nickname of love.
Yeah, right. And the thing is, just the popularity of not only picking college football games, but then there in the fall, I mean, then picking NFL games, definitely a busy weekend there come the fall around, picking not only college football games, but then also on Sundays there with NFL games.
Yeah, that's the great thing about now being over at Fox, where they have a whole NFL schedule. Stanford, Steve and I would at ESPN, we would mention the NFL. We would maybe do some survivor picks on the NFL, but I'm going to have my own NFL weekly show, weekly podcast during the week. I'm going to have a college centric one. I'm going to have a pro centric one, and I'm looking forward to it. And I think what really turned me on last year look, we had season tickets for the Jets growing up from 1978 until the time I left for Miami. So I know the NFL. I follow the NFL. I watch it. I'm aware, and working in the Amazon game last year on Thursday night really gave me even a greater appreciation and greater knowledge of the sport. But and it was funny because last year winning the Circa Friday Football Challenge, I used a lot of NFL games in those picks. So I had a pretty darn good year last year picking NFL games. So hopefully that will carry over this year, even though, as I joke to everybody, being that I won the Circa contest last year, I finished in the top 10 in the Golden Nugget contest. I'm certainly due hit 60-something% in the USFL, hit 60-something% in my column last year with Stanford Steve. So I'm definitely due for a clunker this year. So be curious to see what winds up happening.
Right. And with going over to Fox Sports, I mean, not only with your main gig there with the Fox pregame show here come the fall, but like you were saying, here at the beginning, I mean, you're about ready to, go out to Australia there and cover the Women's World Cup.
And the funny thing is, I shouldn't say funny. I think one of the interesting things is people always ask me, I mentioned how like the thing I was most proud of with game day was being ahead of the curve with sports gambling.
Right.
The best experience I've ever had in working sports, and certainly at ESPN, was being involved in the 2010 World Cup in South Africa, being there for 5 weeks, being a part of that event behind the scenes was absolutely fantastic. Just different culture, different people from throughout the world coming to support their national teams. And that's why I think I kind of liked it, because it had a college football kind of feel, because your nation was your college and to be there and have the impact that the event did in South Africa was something that I'm really proud of. And now, and that was one of the things that brought me to Fox. Right. When I had the opportunity to not only be involved in college football, but to be involved in horse racing like I was at the Belmont Stakes. Like I said, I grew up on Long Island, so I am a horse racing junkie.
Right.
But to be involved in the Women's World Cup this year, Euros next year in Germany, and then in 2026, when the World Cup comes to the United States, that was a big selling point to me. Like, hey, you know what? You can go over to Fox and not only do your passion in college football, but you can be involved in a couple of other things that you used to be involved in at ESPN that they no longer have, and you can get back involved with that. And that was something that was a huge selling point to me. So I'm really excited to get back involved with soccer coverage like I was this past weekend as well.
Yeah, and when here with this interview, being on the day where the All-Star game here is in a couple hours, another Fox Sports thing, but it's not just football that sports betting has gone crazy. I mean, the Orioles and the Nationals have a segment during their pregame there on betting there for fans there for baseball. So here with the All-Star game being later on tonight, I mean, baseball is thrown into the mix also nowadays.
Yeah, and I think baseball is a sport that really needs to embrace the landscape of sports betting, because it is the longest season. Maybe your team falls out of the race, and if local, I don't want to say local teams, but if local broadcasters and people that cover the team are looking to keep fans interested and involved, I think being able to mention and talk about betting opportunities is something that baseball. I mean, look, 9 innings. I mean, you can bet on inning by inning. You can bet first inning, first 3. I mean, the number of possibilities for you to bet in college football, or in baseball rather, are infinite. It seems so. We've seen the leagues now get involved with a lot of betting companies, and I think that is I think that's a good thing, because you see over in Europe, I mean, a lot of the European soccer stadiums have, whether it's Ladbrokes or whomever, William Hill, have kiosks in the stadium. So we're getting to that point, I think, and I think that's a good thing.
Right, and but I still don't understand how. I mean, here with living in southeastern Virginia, we have a casino, and but I still don't understand with betting, baseball with a hit and a half. I mean, you can never get a half a hit.
You just need to. Well, that's the house's way of saying we don't want to push. You're gonna get one hit or two, and that's the $1 million. And I like that too, because you can you can make a call, and sometimes you can find a better number by behind a better plus price if you're willing to take a stand on something like that.
Yes, and back to Fox Sports, and I know when I first reached out to you in the springtime, I mean, college football and NFL football picking the game, certainly popularity, but definitely they're in March Madness, and the with Fox Sports having the Big East there for college basketball, but they're with the tournament and the madness of the brackets. They're definitely awesome thing.
Yeah, man, my March Madness is, I think, after the Super Bowl, the biggest sports betting event in the country. Everybody fills out a bracket. People got survivor pools. People bet the game, and it's that's kind of one of those events that transcends age and generation and whatever else. But yeah, that was this March was an interesting tournament for sure, with the seed total that wound up reaching the Final Four. A good friend of mine, Will Hill, actually had FAU in the Final Four, which worked out pretty darn well for him. And that's one of the things. I live in the state of Connecticut, and in the state of Connecticut, with the legalized sports gambling, you cannot wager on a team from the state of Connecticut to win. So, like, you couldn't bet UConn in Connecticut to win the national championship. So if you bet San Diego State to win the national championship, in the state of Connecticut, you were graded as a winner.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah. And boy, Danny Hurley, definitely doing an awesome job there with Huskies basketball. And yeah, and I know that Fox Sports, has Big East basketball.
Yeah, no, and that's a good thing for UConn to get back in there. I mean, obviously, Jim Calhoun built the program from basically nothing, and now to have, I believe, 5 national titles now, I think,
Right.
since 1999, is a pretty remarkable achievement. And it took a couple of years for Danny Hurley to kind of dig out from the era that they had prior to this and the probation issues that they had, but they put together a really good team, and they should probably be pretty darn good again next year, even though they did lose a couple of guys to the NBA.
Yeah, and and to get back on college football, I mean, the Thanksgiving weekend is not the end of the regular. Well, it's the end of the regular season, but then how conferences have conference championships there that first weekend in December, and then another popular thing to do is to definitely pick the bowls once the selection is out there. They're the first Sunday night in December.
Yeah, but bowl betting has really kind of changed in the last few years. It really has turned into an exercise in amateur psychology to see which teams are actually going to just show up in the bowl game, which players are going to play, which players are not. More importantly, what players are not going to play. And I think they need to. I think the sport needs to take a look at that and maybe change some rules around some of the non-college football playoff bowls to allow maybe you're a player who is being redshirted. Maybe you don't burn your redshirt season, and if you're allowed to play in a bowl game, that would be something I think that would help the quality of the game, and it would also help teams get a look at some of the players that they have on their roster outside of practice in an actual game situation. So, yeah, bowls are something that I think have really turned into a live betting exercise just because of the uncertainty of knowing or not knowing which team is going to show up in games that don't necessarily have national title implications.
Yes, and I would like to, one of the last couple things to talk about here before we wrap up this episode. I mean, the popularity of there in Las Vegas. I mean, the Raiders moving there, and more than likely the Oakland A's are looking to move. So, I see some more professional sport. Well, they already have hot NHL, so definitely a lot of professional sports moving their franchises there to Las Vegas.
Yeah, and who would have thought that
Right.
10, 15 years ago, the National Football League would have a pro team in the city of Las Vegas. And I think it's a good thing because I think it shows an awareness now that Las Vegas is a city that, yes, there is a lot of sports betting that goes on, but there are other things in the city to offer. It's a destination for fans of other teams. Like if you look at a Raiders game, I mean, there are tons of fans from the opposing team as well. And now you've got the Golden Knights winning the Stanley Cup this year and getting to the Stanley Cup final their first year. We'll see if the A's thing ultimately does come true, but you've got the Super Bowl coming there, and it's probably just a matter of time before they have a Final Four as well.
Right. Yes, and so you cover the Women's World Cup, but then when you come back, I mean, you might not have your first Fox pregame there, the end of August or their Labor Day weekend, but probably here busy time to get ready here for the fall.
And it is, and unfortunately, I got about a 20-hour flight or so to do a little bit of reading and kill some time before the season starts for sure. But yeah, it's going to be interesting because Will Carson Beck be effective as Georgia's quarterback? Because I think we all are kind of in agreement that Georgia's the best team as they look to win a third straight title. And is Ohio State the second best team, or are they even the best team in the Big Ten? Because Michigan won it the last 2 years. So it's gonna be an interesting year. It wouldn't surprise me this year, maybe if we get another team from potentially kind of outside the box in the playoff this year. I mean, we saw TCU get there last year. We saw Cincinnati the year before, and wouldn't surprise me maybe if a team from the Big 12, because that's such a high variance league, maybe we get another kind of surprise from the Big 12.
Yes, and I think another thing that I like that happened, a good while ago was how, the NFL, they open up on the second weekend of September, giving Labor Day weekend to college football. And yeah, the tradition is Saturday, but that whole Labor Day weekend is nothing but college football.
Yeah, I mean, it starts Thursday night and goes all the way through until Monday. So it's certainly you get five straight nights of college football to start the season, and that's a good thing. People can say sometimes, "Oh, these games they don't look good on paper." Hey, more college football is a good thing.
Yes. Well, hey, Bear, I certainly appreciate you coming on, and I know that listeners out there will be following you here as you cover the Women's World Cup, and then definitely your main assignment here with Fox college football pregame here in the fall.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And once we get back from Australia, my podcast will be kicking off, and we'll have some more columns out there. I've already put some columns up there on foxsports.com to kind of give away a couple of preseason win totals and some other conference bets and title bets as well. So we're slowly and surely getting there, and we're picking up some new things every day. But I appreciate you chatting it up here, and I love talking about college football with anybody.
Yes, and so all right, listeners. So hey, that's a wrap here today as we had Fox Sports Chris the Bear Fallica on with us today, and also as he shared that gonna start back his podcast also, but definitely look for him there on Fox college football pregame here this fall, and definitely when is the Women's World Cup? It's like in a week, right?
It starts next week and goes through August 20th, I believe it is. I got my dates all jumbled because everything in Australia is a day ahead.
Right.
Literally, I leave on Friday and the flight gets there on Sunday. So it's I got to get used to trying to do the calculation in my head. Yes.
Well, hey, just listeners out there, just follow them there on Fox Sports and then foxsports.com. So thanks again for your time, and talk to you later.
Absolutely. Take care now.